Can a person be president of the United States 3 times? This is a big question. It became very important because of Donald Trump. He was the president before. Then people started seeing red hats for sale online and at events. These hats had a simple message written on them, Trump 2028. It looked like a clear sign. It suggested that Donald Trump wanted to run for president again in the 2028 election. If he won that election, it would be his 3rd time being elected president. This seemed strange to many people in America and around the world. Donald Trump also talked about this idea himself. In some interviews and public talks, he said he might like to stay president for a 3rd time. He even suggested there could be ways or methods to make this happen. He sometimes joked about it with his supporters, saying maybe he could be president 3 or even 4 times. These comments and the red hats made many people ask questions. They wondered if it was really possible for someone to be president 3 times under American law. What were the exact rules? Could the rules be changed, or were there secret ways around them? It caused a lot of discussion in the news and among ordinary people. Everyone wanted to know the facts. The United States has very clear rules about its government. These rules are written in a special, very important document called the Constitution. The Constitution includes rules about the president's job. One very important rule limits how many times a person can be elected president. This rule was added to the Constitution many years ago, after a president served for a very long time. Because of this rule, most experts and informed people believed that being elected president 3 times was simply not allowed. So, why was there so much talk about a 3rd time for Donald Trump? What did he really want? And what does the law exactly say? This story will help answer these questions. We will look carefully at the specific rule in the Constitution about presidential terms. We will explore why this rule was made by looking back at American history. We will also examine what Donald Trump said and did regarding this topic. It is an interesting puzzle about power, the limits of power, and the laws of a country. It shows how rules are important, even for the most powerful leaders. Let's explore this important subject together. 2. The Big Rule. The United States has a very important set of rules called the Constitution. Think of it as the country's main rule book. Inside this rule book, there is a special rule about the president. This rule is called the 22nd Amendment. It was added to the Constitution many years ago in 1951. What does this big rule say? It is quite simple. It says that a person cannot be elected president more than 2 times. The exact words are, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. This means winning the election for president 2 times is the limit. After that, the Constitution says you cannot be elected president again. Why did the United States add this rule? It happened because of a president named Franklin D. Roosevelt. People often called him FDR. President Roosevelt was very popular. He was president during very hard times for America and the world. There was a big problem with money called the Great Depression, and then a very big war, the Second World War. Because these times were so difficult, and because many people liked him, FDR was elected president not just once or twice, but 4 times. He won elections in 1932, 1936, 1940, and 1944. No other president had ever served that long. He died early in his fourth time as president in 1945. Before FDR, presidents usually only served for 2 times or 2 terms. The first president, George Washington, chose to stop after 2 terms. Many presidents after him did the same thing. It became a tradition, like an unspoken rule, but it was not a real law. After FDR was president for so long, many Americans started to worry. They thought that one person having the job of president for such a long time gave them too much power. They felt it was better for the country to have a clear limit. So the 22nd Amendment was created and added to the Constitution. This made the old tradition into a strong official law. The rule is very clear: 2 elected terms is the maximum. This rule is very strong. It applies to everyone who has been elected president 2 times before. It stops them from being elected for a 3rd time. Changing this rule in the Constitution is possible, but it is extremely difficult. It needs agreement from a very large number of politicians in Washington, D.C., and also from most of the states in the country. So the big rule remains a powerful limit. 3. Rules and ideas. Some people thought about ways Donald Trump could stay as president for longer than 2 terms. They looked for ideas to get around the main rule from the Constitution. These ideas were talked about by some supporters. Let's look at 2 of these ideas. One idea was about the job of vice president. The plan was like this. In an election, Trump could try to become vice president, not president. Someone else would run for president with him. If they won the election, the new president would start the job. But then this new president would quickly leave the job. When a president leaves, the vice president becomes the new president. So the plan was that Trump would become president again. He would not be elected president for a 3rd time this way. Some people thought this plan could work. However, people who study the law say this idea will likely not work. There is another important rule in the Constitution. It is called the 12th Amendment. This rule says something clear. It says that if a person cannot be president, that person cannot be vice president either. The main rule, the 22nd Amendment, stops a person from being elected president more than 2 times. Because of this, the 12th Amendment means that person cannot be vice president either. So this plan would likely fail because of this other rule. Many experts think there are no easy ways around the limits on how long someone can be president. Another idea was different. Some people thought about changing the rules themselves. The Constitution can be changed. A change is called an amendment. One politician suggested making a new amendment. This new rule would allow a president to have a 3rd term if it was not right after the 2nd term. This idea would only help Trump among presidents who are still alive. But changing the Constitution is very, very hard. It needs a very large number of politicians to agree. First, in the government in Washington, D.C., many members in both parts of Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate, must vote yes. More than 2 out of every 3 members must agree. That is a lot. After that, the states must agree too. Not just some states, but most of them. 3 out of every 4 states in the country need to say yes to the change. Getting so many politicians and states to agree is very difficult. Right now, there is not enough agreement to change this important rule. Even some politicians from Trump's own party said they did not want to change the Constitution like this. They said the idea was not likely to happen, so this idea probably will not work either. 4. What history tells us. Let's look at the past. We can learn from history about presidents and how long they stay in office in the United States. The very first president was George Washington. After he was president 2 times, he made a big decision. He decided to stop being president in 1796. At that time, there was no law saying a president must stop after 2 times. It was completely his choice. Washington believed that the leader of the country should not act like a king who stays in power forever. He wanted to show that power should pass peacefully from one leader to the next. Many presidents after Washington followed his example. For over 140 years, American presidents usually served only 1 or 2 times. It became a normal way of doing things, a tradition. People respected Washington's decision. They thought it was good for the country if presidents did not stay in power for too long. This tradition was important, but it was not a written law in the Constitution. Then, things changed with President Franklin D. Roosevelt. People often call him FDR. He became president when America faced very difficult times. First, there was a terrible time for the economy called the Great Depression. Then the country entered a very big war, the Second World War. Because of these huge problems, the American people elected FDR 4 times in a row. He was president for much longer than anyone before him. He died early in his 4th time as president, in April 1945. After FDR was president for so long, many people started to worry. They felt that one person having power for such a long time might not be good for the country. They remembered George Washington's old tradition. They decided this tradition should become a real, written rule. So in 1951, a new part was added to the U.S. Constitution. This part is called the 22nd Amendment. It says very clearly, no person can be elected president more than 2 times. So history shows us 2 important things. The idea of a president serving only 2 times is very old, starting with George Washington's choice. But the official law making this a rule is much newer. The 22nd Amendment was created directly because Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected 4 times during very hard times. This law makes sure that the old tradition is now a strong rule that all future presidents must follow. 5. The surprise news. In May 2025, President Donald Trump gave an important interview on television. It was on a show called Meet the Press. Many people watched it. During the interview, Trump said something that surprised many people. He stated very clearly that he would not try to be president for a 3rd time in 2028. "I'll be an 8-year president, I'll be a 2-term president," he said. He added, "I always thought that was very important." He showed that he knew about the rule for presidents. The interviewer asked him about the red hats saying Trump 2028. These hats were being sold, and some people thought it meant he wanted to run again. Trump answered that many people were selling the hats, but this is not something I'm looking to do. He made it clear he did not plan to run in 2028. He explained his plan. He wanted to finish the 4 years of his 2nd term. He wanted to work hard during this time. Then he said he would hand over the job to the next president. He hoped this person would be ideally a great Republican. He said he would not try to stay in the job longer than the rules allow. This announcement was a big change. Just weeks before, Trump had talked differently. He had said people asked him to find methods to stay in power longer than the law allowed. Sometimes at his public events, he joked about serving 3 times or 4 times. His own company sold the red Trump 2028 hats. Some crowds even shouted for a 3rd term while he smiled. But now his message was the opposite. The White House also commented on the hats. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt told reporters the hat was just a hat. She said running in 2028 was not something he's thinking of. News reports after the interview focused on Trump's clear words. He repeated that running again was not something I'm looking to do. These reports noted that Trump seemed to accept the rule in the Constitution. This rule is the 22nd Amendment. It says a person cannot be elected president more than 2 times. Trump said he would serve 4 great years and turn it over to somebody. So, the surprise news was official. President Trump stated he planned to step down after his 2nd term finished in January 2029. He promised to follow the law about presidential terms. This changed the conversation about his future plans. 6. What people said. After Mr. Trump said he would not try to be president for a 3rd time, many people talked about it. They shared their ideas and feelings about his surprising announcement. Some people in Mr. Trump's political party, the Republicans, thought his decision was good. They felt he was showing respect for the country's rules. Some important Republicans, like Tom Cole, had already said that talking about a 3rd term was not realistic. John Thune, another Republican leader, said Mr. Trump could only run again if the Constitution was changed, which was very hard to do. Steve Scalise, also a leader, suggested that Mr. Trump often said things to get people talking, but there was no real plan to change the rules. The president's team also tried to make the Trump 2028 hats seem unimportant, saying they were just popular items people liked to buy. However, some other Republicans who were strong supporters of Mr. Trump felt disappointed. They still hoped he would find a way to run in the 2028 election. One supporter, Andy Ogles, had even suggested changing the rules just for Mr. Trump, but most leaders knew this idea would not work. People in the other main party, the Democrats, had different thoughts. Most Democrats said the rule in the Constitution was always very clear. A president cannot be elected more than 2 times, so they were not surprised that Mr. Trump said he would follow this rule. They felt it was the only choice he had. Some Democrat leaders, like Daniel Goldman, had already said that any talk of a 3rd term was an attack on the country's system. Hakeem Jeffries, another Democrat leader, made jokes online about the situation. But some Democrats were still suspicious. They did not fully trust Mr. Trump's words. They wondered if he might change his mind later or try something else. Dick Durbin, an important Democrat, repeated that the rules were clear and must be followed. Among the people who voted for Mr. Trump, there were different feelings too. Some were happy with his statement and thought he was doing the right thing, but many others were not happy. They really wanted him to be president again after his 2nd term finished. At some events before the announcement, people had shouted for him to run for a third time. After he said he would not run, many people discussed it online and in the news. News reporters talked a lot about the announcement. They asked questions like, did Mr. Trump really mean it? Was he being honest? Or was it just a way to get attention or stop people talking about other problems? There was a lot of discussion everywhere about whether people could believe his promise. So, people had many different opinions about Mr. Trump's decision. Republicans were divided, with some agreeing and others feeling let down. Democrats mostly pointed to the clear rule, though some remained careful. The public and the news media continued to talk about what it all meant for the future. 7. Thinking about why. Donald Trump said he would not try to be president for a third time. This surprised many people. Why did he make this announcement? Nobody knows the real answer for sure, but people have different ideas. One idea is about the rules. Maybe Trump wanted to stop the talk about him not respecting the country's laws. The Constitution has a clear rule about only 2 terms for a president. By saying he would follow this rule, he could show people he understood and respected it. Another idea is about history. How will people remember President Trump in the future? Some presidents are remembered well because they followed the rules and traditions. George Washington only served 2 terms, and many presidents did the same. Perhaps Trump wanted to be seen like them, as someone who knew when to step down. Maybe Trump was thinking about the future of his political party, the Republicans. By saying he would not run again, he gives other Republicans a chance to become leaders. He even mentioned some names, like J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Perhaps he wants to help them prepare for future elections. This could keep his ideas important even when he is not president. Some people think it was a smart political plan. Maybe Trump wanted to change what people were talking about. If people talked about his decision not to run again, they might talk less about other problems or difficult questions. It could be a way to control the news. It is also possible he wanted to show he was a strong leader who makes careful choices. Saying he would serve 8 years and then leave could make him look responsible. Or maybe the reason is very simple. The law, the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, is very clear. It says a person cannot be elected president more than 2 times. Perhaps Trump knew he could not change this law easily. Maybe he just accepted that the rule was the rule and he had to follow it like everyone else. We cannot look inside Trump's head to know exactly why he said this. There could be many reasons, or maybe just one big reason. People will likely keep talking about this decision and what it means. 8. What happens now? So the story comes to this point. President Trump made a clear statement. He said he will not try to be president for a third time. This was important news. The rules in the United States Constitution are very clear about this. There is a special rule called the 22nd Amendment. This rule was made many years ago after President Franklin D. Roosevelt was president 4 times. The 22nd Amendment says one person cannot be elected president more than 2 times. 8 years is the limit for being elected. President Trump said he knows this rule and will follow it. He told people in an interview, "I'll be an 8-year president." This means he plans to finish his 2nd time as president and then leave the White House. This was different from some things he suggested before. Some of his supporters had hoped he might find a way to stay longer. There were even hats saying Trump 2028, but Trump said this is not something I'm looking to do. What happens next in politics? Even though Trump says he will not run again in 2028, he is still very powerful. He has many supporters across the country. His opinions and ideas will still matter a lot. He will likely continue to have a big influence on the Republican Party. The next presidential election in 2028 will look different without Trump running. Other politicians will now have a clearer path to try and become president. Trump might decide to help one of these politicians. He could tell his supporters who he wants them to vote for. He mentioned liking people like J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. His support could be very important for another candidate. The future is never certain in politics. Things can always change. But right now, the constitutional rule about only 2 terms seems solid. Trump's announcement suggests that the rules of the American government system apply to everyone, even presidents. It shows the limits on power. This whole discussion was about power, rules, and history. Now we have Trump's answer about his plans. Do you think Trump will stick to his promise not to run in 2028?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.